Good afternoon, this is Jeff with Sewer Tech Northwest. We're at 4536 North Haight Avenue here in Portland. Located down in the basement. Going through a 3-inch ABS cleanout on the otherwise cast iron stack. We're going to check the overall condition and serviceability of the sanitary sewer line. Water's running. We're going to zero out once we get down underneath the floor here. So you can see it starts out as 3-inch. Actually, much of this looks like it's been updated above here. Then we're going to swap to 4-inch cast iron. So real quick, it's not the first time I've seen this done. It's just something to be aware of. It looks like a condenser line of some, it's my guess anyways, it's a condenser line for something. Has been kind of MacGyvered into the cap, which works pretty good until you have to remove the cap, and you can see the cap just kind of spins around it. So whatever, you need to probably put some new goop on here to make sure that's sealed up. I did find some tape down here. I'll try and put around that, but there's a little, honestly, I think you probably could have just stubbed that thing right into the drain that sits behind the stack here. There's another drain right here, and that looks like it's not in use any longer. I'm not sure if there's any issues with it or not, but generally I like to see that either tied into just a small little branch of pipe on its own, so it's not part of a moving system. It's just not ideal. The other thing you want to make sure of is that hose there does not protrude so far into the line that it can actually obstruct flow. In most cases it's not going to, but this hose is fairly rigid. It doesn't bend very easily. I'm pushing on that pretty hard. You just want to make sure it doesn't stick far enough in there that it can obstruct the sewer line. So there's a little nicer way to do that, which I'd recommend doing at some point, but anyhow, on to the sewer line here. I'm going to drop down to the bottom and then zero out. Off we go here. We'll get a better view of the cast iron as we come back out at the end. The line's fully drained. Kind of a murky spot here. My guess is we are probably just got outside the home here into probably concrete or clay pipe. Alright, you got clay pipe there. And judging by the water flow drop off, you're losing water out of the line here. And that's an earthworm sticking to the joint right there in front of my camera. That water flow kind of cut in and out there. You got roots here. This is not an unexpected thing to see in pipe this old. More roots here. Oh, my camera doesn't feel like orienting here today. Anyway, the exterior line is ready for update at this point. You've got multiple root intrusions. And it looks like very soon after you enter into the clay pipe, the water flow dropped off there. And what you'll typically see, it's something, after doing 25,000 sewer scopes, your eyeballs get pretty good at catching this stuff. When a line sits for a while, or no water's gone through it for, even just a day or two, and you've got joints that are exposed to the ground around the pipe can dry out, and water is very easily absorbed into it, and it's very obvious when the water flow drops off. What happens though is as the water continues down line, it starts to saturate the dirt outside the pipe, and that water is not getting accepted into the ground quite as readily. And so, you know, after a short period of time of water running, the water flow will continue on and almost look normal. And yeah, there's the main there at about 78 feet. We're going to do some locating here. We'll get the entire exterior line mapped out, then we'll take a look at the cast iron pipe. Just moving along through it, it was feeling a little bit rough and bumpy, so we may have some pitting, some worn out cast iron as well, but we'll see. All right, I'm getting a locate signal out on North Haight. Not a terribly strong one though. I can see where the city has put a marking of their own down. My locates are just not coming in very strong out there. We'll pull back here a little ways. Alrighty, picked a good spot to stop here. I'm sitting about 6 inches from the curb. Very shallow out near the curb. The yard is built up considerably higher than the sidewalk area. I'm only about 3 foot 5 inches deep there. Most parts of town, you're 7 to 8 feet or more. As we come back to the yard, that depth is going to change, I'm sure. Yeah, got a good separation there at that joint. Start getting back into some of the roots are out here in a second. That joint right there, it's got a bunch of dirt coming to the joint. All right, we're right now sitting in the yard just before the retaining wall or the yard drops off. Still only about 5 feet deep, surprisingly. The way they graded this thing, it kind of went with the topography of the yard. Usually with a layout like this, you go from 3.5 feet deep at the sidewalk to 8.5 feet deep. And we're getting where all the roots and dirt coming to the line here. And so far, other than a little bit of a question mark here at the start of the clay pipe, much of this looks like decent slope and grade to it. The reason I mention that is it could be a candidate for an epoxy liner. I would at least explore that option. Yeah, the only issue is you get to spots like this, and this is one of those areas there where you got to do a little bit of correction there to get the grade proper. Right now we're sitting about 4 or 5 feet out from the front patio. Still about the same depth there, getting between about 4 foot 11, 5 feet deep. So pretty quick here, we're going to go underneath the patio where I can't do any locates. We do start to get some belly right about in this region here. All right, I'm picking this locate up here just outside the patio. And I can't orient my locator just because we're so close to the patio in the way I want to, but the depth's going to be very similar there as just, you know, a few feet away. We'll see how this cast iron looks here. My camera right now is upside down. Bottom of the pipe right now is the top of the screen. So far here, looking pretty good. no channeling visible. Looks like a pretty rounded out. And one of the things I look for with cast iron, when you know it's starting to really wear through, is you'll get what's called a channel or a trough that forms where the metal gets eaten away in the flow line. It's quite obvious. And or over the top of it, you'll get very heavy scale buildup, which that does not show. You have a very nice, round, smooth pipe bottom there. So anyway, I'll have to go back and review the video there, but essentially everything from the front patio to the end of homeowner responsibility, I recommend updating. You'll see where my T marking is just out in front of the patio there. Recommend taking that repair as far back within the reason as you can up to the patio and then out to the end of responsibility. I always recommend, in Portland, the city takes responsibility at the face of the curb. If you can, I always highly recommend you take that repair just past the curb, even if it's just 6 inches. The reason for that is transition joints, especially when you are transitioning from new pipe to old pipe, in this case clay pipe in the street. Transition joints in general, but especially new and old pipe meeting are by far the weakest joints in a line to root intrusions. And so if you can take that transition joint just past the curb, if a root does ever punch through, there's no question whose responsibility it's in. I hate to see it when it happens, when it's right on the dividing line. Of late, I've heard some pretty good circumstance where the city's dealt with it, but I've also had them where the city's put it back on the homeowner. So I just recommend doing that. Take it just past the curb, and a lot of times that can be accomplished without doing too much in the way of street repairs, if any, depending on how the repair is done. So highly recommend that be done. And I recommend a rescope after any repairs are done to check the work. If you do a trenchless style, like epoxy liner, for instance, make sure it's rescoped, make sure everything's cured up properly. You don't have any giant wrinkles in it or flakes of epoxy left over. If you do a trench style repair, you want to make sure the rescope takes place after the trench is closed, but before you do concrete work and things of that nature. You want to get the whole line buried, compacted, so there's weight on top of it. Make sure everything looks good. That's when all your settling issues happen, like bellies, offset joints, things like that. So once you put a load on top of the line, you've got a pretty reasonable look at things at that point, and if everything looks good, that's when you want to do your concrete repairs. Anyway, as far as the cast iron goes, everything from just outside the patio back into the home here looks like cast iron that's in good condition for its age, has good flow, and is functioning properly.